Hi, my name is Grace and I got into Harvard University.
My name is Julian and I got into the Wharton School of Business at UPenn.
We've been best friends for over 10 years.
And this is our college acceptance reactions, and we'll talk a little bit about our stats and ECs. And our acceptance reaction should go up right now.
Ooh. 4 o'clock. Start something. Yeah!
Okay, it's 4. There's an update to my application. I am delighted to inform you of your admission to Penn's 269th class. You have been selected to study in the Wharton School. Alright, so I went to a private all-boys Catholic high school in Los Angeles. I won't say the name because I don't want people to find where I am, but it's pretty specific. But I was in the top 5% of my graduating class of around like 300 kids. I had a GPA weighted of 4.46. These are the classes that I took. And these are the classes that I'm currently taking. And so I'll talk a little bit about my stats, like the numbers and what I got on tests and stuff. So I had a 1580 SAT. I took it in sophomore year, I think in like March. So I got it out of the way pretty quickly. I had an 800 on Math 2, which I took on freshman year. I had a 760 on Chem, 760 on US History for like the subject tests. And I took those in...
Senior year.
Wait, what's senior year?
Senior year. This October.
Oh yeah, it was in senior year. It was really recent actually, like before I submitted applications. So I took 3 subject tests. Well, I took Chinese, actually, like the listening part as well. I didn't do too well on that, so I didn't submit that score. So those were the scores that I submitted. For AP scores, I had 5 5s in Calc AB, Calc BC, US History, Comp Sci A, and Lang, and I had 2 4s in World History and Chem.
Alrighty, and for my stats, I went to a pretty big public high school and I was ranked 1 out of 431 students. I had a 4.45 GPA weighted, 4.0 unweighted, and these are the classes that I took. And these are the classes that I'm currently taking. Alrighty, and for the SAT, I got a 1540. That was my 3rd try. Yeah. And I took 3 SAT subject tests. I got an 800 in Chem, US History, and Math 2. And for AP scores, I got 6 5s in Physics 1, World History, Calc AB, Calc BC, Chem, and US History. I got a 4 in Ling, and I got a 3 in Comp Sci Principles, but I didn't submit the 4 or 3.
Okay, so we'll talk about our activities now, or like our extracurriculars. And the way I did it in my Common App is that I put it kind of like, I ranked it in terms of my most important to my least important. So I'll go in that order. And of course it's like subjective. There's really nothing you can say objectively is like more important than something else. It's just your opinion of what kind of image you want to present to the colleges. Okay, so the first activity I had was as the editor-in-chief of my school newspaper. I said that in 11th grade, I was a news editor, and now I'm currently the editor-in-chief. And basically all I do is that I edit article submissions. I'm basically like the last line of defense of like editing things, checking things with my co-editor-in-chief, but I'm the last person that it goes to before it gets published. So I felt like this was one of the most important activities that I've done throughout high school. Like in freshman and sophomore year, I was a writer, and then I got like an editorial role starting from junior year. And so this is by far like my most consistent activity throughout high school, at least, well, in school. And it's just kind of like the image I wanted to show colleges, that I have this really important role on our school's publication, and that I've been able to maintain this responsibility for a long time, and that I have like some leadership skills, obviously. So it's like, it's not business related, but it shows that I'm good with people skills and communicating. So I just thought it was the most important for me. The second activity that I have is actually a podcast that I run with a couple of my friends from school. It's called From Gen Z Podcast. And I put that I was founder, but I was co-founder with like 3 other people from my school. And I thought this kind of showed like a different aspect of my personality, I guess. Like it shows that, I do a lot of work at school, but I also can talk about other stuff like social stuff. I actually wrote my personal statement on this podcast, but I'll get into that later when we talk about our essays. Third activity was I put that I was the Los Angeles district representative at Code Buddy tutoring. So Code Buddy is like, Grace and I actually do it together, but we tutor kids at some elementary school near us, but we teach them coding as the name suggests, but I've done that in junior and I'm continuing to do that right now. And the fourth activity I actually put was as a YouTuber. I run my personal YouTube channel, as you guys are seeing right now, but I just thought, it shows like a fun personality side of me. So as you can see, like a lot of these activities, they're not strictly like school related or like academics related. It's just, I put a lot of things that show different sides of my personality, which I feel like colleges would have liked, and I guess they did. Fifth activity, or was that fourth or one,
yeah,
two,
fifth.
three? Okay, yeah, fifth. Fifth activity, I actually thought this was really, I would have put this higher up if I hadn't had like some of the other ones, but I put that I was the president of Schedule E Tutoring, which is like a tutoring organization that I do, similar to Code Buddy, but I teach math and like book club. But I've done this since like 7th or 8th grade, but obviously I put that I've done it since like freshman until now. But yeah, I spend a lot of time doing this. It's really important to me because I care a lot about the kids that I tutor. So yeah. Sixth was as the marketing director of a company that I like co-founded during a summer program. Actually recently, it was this past summer of 2020. So it was online, but we still got to like attend this summer program through Zoom. And I met a couple friends there. We started a company because the program itself is a entrepreneurship or like a startup based program. So we, created that, went through the gauntlet, and it's a pretty important activity for me. Seventh grade, 8, 9, 10. Seventh was as a researcher at a summer camp that I went to. The research that I did there, I felt like was really important to me, and I continue to do research in it. So it shows like longevity and commitment. But this I did going into my 11th grade year. So this was like last year in 2019. 8 was a club that I am the president of and that I like co-founded. It's called the Young Entrepreneurs Club, and similar to I guess my other activities, it's based on entrepreneurship and like startups, but this one was actually based on, or like during meetings, we try to help kids compete in this competition called the Diamond Challenge. So that's that. Number 9 was a cultural thing actually. It's a school club that I'm the senior leader of called CASA, the Korean American Students Association. So I'm Korean American, Grace is as well. But yeah, I had a big part in that club. And finally, I had the president of my archery club, which I did. I shot since like 8th grade, but I was the president in 11th grade. But similar to my other activities, that just shows that I don't stay home all day. I don't just do work all day, but that I do sports as well, even though it's not like a conventional sport.
Alrighty, and for my extracurriculars, just as Julian did, I ranked mine in like in levels of importance to me, and of course it is subjective, but differently. I pursued extracurriculars that matched my concentration, which is environmental science and public policy. So my first extracurricular was that I was part of the Los Angeles Mayor's Youth Council for Climate Action, where we created an educational handbook to help the LA Unified School District implement environmental programs at their schools, and we also published green editorials. And just with Julian, I was a coding instructor at Code Buddy. We put different descriptions, but basically we just taught elementary students how to code. For my third extracurricular, I put that one to the Harvard School of Engineering and Applied Sciences Water Engineering and Resource Management program, where my group and I created a water filtration device centered around solar distillation. And I put that I was a research intern at a lab at USC, where I basically did different wastewater treatment plans. My fifth extracurricular was that I was a crew member at Chipotle. I worked there over the summer. My sixth was that I was a research assistant at a lab at UCLA, where I reviewed videos of marmots and organized their lab video footage. My 7th was that I was a site captain for Heal the Bay, so during Coastal Cleanup Day, I would administer cleanup site and give volunteers directions, instructions, and supplies. I also put that I was the senior and junior class vice president at my school, and I was also the secretary of a club called Kiwins, which is basically a service club, and currently I'm the vice president. And my last activity was that I'm part of the girls varsity basketball team. Alrighty, now we're going to be talking a little bit about our essays. For my Common App essay, I wrote about working at Chipotle and how that helped me become a better coding teacher. And Harvard only had one other optional supplement, but it's not really optional. So for that one, I wrote about going to the Harvard Water Engineering program and how that pushed me to take action in my own community.
Wait, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk about my essays a little bit now. For a personal statement, I talked about, I guess I gave a sneak peek about this a little before, but I talked about my podcast, like From Gen Z, and it was more about like how that podcast allowed me to change my way of thinking. I kind of focused on like how the things we talked about, like the events we talked about, like experiences, social phenomena, I guess, and the people that I talked about or talked to, how that exposed me to a different side and like made me more empathetic. And so yeah, I just said that like, you know, that podcast exposed me to so much that I was able to apply to other parts of my life. Like, as I said, I consider my work at the school newspaper very, very important. And so I talked about how my work in the podcast connected to, you know, some of my other extracurricular activities, allowing me to be more empathetic and like understand issues from a different perspective. So that was my personal statement. Okay, so for supplementals, Penn actually has 2 supplementals. One is about like your undergraduate school you're gonna choose. So I chose Wharton, obviously. And then the other one is like community-based. So it wants you to talk about how, like, what you do for your community right now and like how you'll explore that at Penn. And you know, I kind of struggled with both of them, but I'll start with the second one about the community. I think like I had a pretty, I guess, clear idea of what I wanted to talk about for this one. Like going into it, like as soon as I read the prompt, I was like, oh, I kind of want to talk about that. And so I talked about my experience tutoring for Sejui, like one of the tutoring organizations that I work for. And so I said that how the tutoring that I do right now is for, you know, like impoverished kids, I guess, around the Koreatown neighborhood. And I compared that with the area at Philly, which, you know, the West Philadelphia of Pennsylvania. And like demographically, I guess those are pretty similar, I'd say, in terms of, you know, socioeconomically. Philly has its good parts, Koreatown also has its good parts, but I worked with the bad parts, and Pennsylvania, you know, likes to work with some of the students in like elementary schools at the bad parts. And so I related those 2 activities, how I'm gonna pursue or like continue that at Penn. So I think it turned out to be a pretty good essay, I guess, but kind of navigating that and like thinking of how to write it was a little difficult. For my Wharton related one, let's see, I talked about like the summer program that I did this year, and the company that I co-founded with my friends. So I talked about my role as a marketing director of the company. I talked about how I worked on the logo, worked on marketing materials, and I guess why I went into it, or my incentive or motive behind it. So, I mean, I'd say it's pretty basic. I just said that I wanted to do this because of my pre-existing interests. I found a good group of people who were interested in the same thing as I was, and that I kind of assumed the role of marketing director, and like that's the direction I want to go into the future with, like, and that's what I want to study at Wharton. So that's pretty straightforward, actually. And yeah, those were my essays.
And now, overall advice for the college application process. I would say pursue extracurriculars that are that match your intended major. Because I wanted to go into environmental science, I did a lot of things surrounding that, and I think a big part of my application that stood out was my research. And it may seem super difficult to get like a position as a research assistant at USC or UCLA, but it's actually extremely easy. All you have to do is just reach out to professors. Like, I sent out like over 20 emails to professors pertaining in like those fields, and one of them is bound to reply to you. So if you just keep persisting and continue emailing, one of them will be bound to reply, and you'll be able to be a research assistant.
Okay, so with my application, this is actually the first time like I heard about what Grace did, like her activities, and it's very different from what I did. And I think like the general themes of our applications are pretty different. As she said, she had a lot of major related stuff, like specifically with all the research and the internships. Whereas my application I feel was more broad. I think two things that helped as like general themes with my application was leadership and like community involvement, which I think both are elements that Wharton and Penn respectively like value as schools. So like for the leadership, I had a lot of activities where I was, senior leader, founder, co-president, whatever. Like most of my activities were like that. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of people, but just the way I approached them and the way I like delivered, I guess, my involvement in them made it more special, I guess, that I had leadership positions in them. But secondly, and I think also maybe equally, if not more importantly, was the community aspect that I emphasized. So even with my school newspaper, like getting involved with the school community and like the greater LA community, with the tutoring I did, just everything else, all the other parts of my application, they were all very community driven. I interacted with other people and like I showed my overall growth from being someone who was like more introverted, I'd say, in like middle school or like freshman year into a more extroverted business guy, I guess, now. And so that growth and like that community involvement that I showed, I feel like was a very important part of my application that was different from Grace's, was like whose application was more major specific. So I think if that says anything, it should say, or like it should show that there's not one set way to get into college. Like Grace went super into the research and internships, which is commendable. Like there's no way I could have done that. Thank you. And then I went more broad with like leadership, just having big positions at different organizations and clubs. So we had very different approaches to getting into college. Of course, it like depends on what you want to do, where you want to go, what you want to study. But right now, if you're like a junior or a senior, maybe even a sophomore, if you're a freshman, you probably shouldn't be watching this. Just know that you don't have to follow like a set procedure to get into college. There's no formula. And I know it's kind of like a cliche at this point, or like a very trite statement that people say in every video, but it's true. Like people get into college through sports. People get in through, studying like art, dance, music, whatever. We have different paths.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to say actually is that we're both like first generation American college students. Like both our parents either went to Korean college or just didn't go to college at all. We do sports, but we didn't commit because of sports, and we're not legacy either, and we didn't pay our way in. Which, no shade. Money's good. If you donate, that's fine. I have nothing against that. But for everyone who like is in similar positions as us, that's just like, I want to get that out there so you don't get confused. If you're looking for someone who got in through another way, then I guess look for another video. But that's our positions and how we got in. So is there anything we're missing?
No.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. If we're missing anything, we'll like cut in an extra clip or whatever of us speaking individually. But that's pretty much it for our video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions or you want to learn about something else, please reach out to us. We'll probably like drop our socials in the bio. So reach out, like DM us or whatever if you have any questions or want to see other videos. But for now, we're signing off. Bye, guys. Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Grace and I got into Harvard University.
Hi, I'm Julian and I got into Wharton School of Business at UPenn.
And I was gonna say it.
Okay.
And you're like, this is our college. It helps that it was at UPenn.
No, it wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, well, no, okay, so I was supposed to attend UPenn and like take it at the campus.
But it's a UPenn like program.
No, it's not.
What the fuck?
It's like bloopers.
Oh god, what do I do?